Well, welcome everybody. It is so nice to see your face. Folks at home, you will not be able to see our face, but guess what? These are great faces right here. We are lighting the candle, a world that works, and this is going on episode, 47, 48 of all the ones that we've recorded so far. We get together each week to start a conversation and move it out to you, our podcast listening audience, so that you maybe can pick up a nugget here and there, or start your own conversations with other people. Maybe you'll hear something today that will speak empowerment to you, or encouragement, or enlightenment, or any of those E words that we're so fond of using. And the reason that we're here is because for many of us, there's been a period of time where the world hasn't seemed to work all that well. And we realize that in order for the world to work, it comes down to each of us, what we share with each other, what we talk about, and the content of our conversations. To that end, we're going to dialogue on something a little bit different today. So we've been looking at words, and today I'd like to toss out for your approval, fellow podcasters, before you introduce yourself and maybe say a few words about this. What does the word integrity, or the words integrity and life, mean to you? And we'll start with whoever or with whomever is called to go next.
Is this where we're supposed to jump?
Well, see, what we know is if there's silence, that means that the wheels are turning. But Eric tells me that silence on a podcast is not necessarily the best thing. So
no, you have to be comfortable with silence, you know?
I agree with you. That might be the first step in empowerment, is to invite the silence and allow something to show up.
Yeah.
See what comes.
To jump is good.
Well, I looked up the definition. We'll start with the definition of integrity.
There we go.
The quality of being honest and having strong moral principles, moral uprightness. The state of being whole and undivided. Condition of being unified, unimpaired, or sound in construction, and the internal consistency or lack of corruption in electronic data.
There's a sameness and similarity to it, having to do with an underlying, flat, functioning, complete and whole. Very interesting. So integrity in life, if you're starting off with your life being complete and whole, what does that mean with regard to the conversations that we've been having?
Now, I find that definition interesting because the thing that came to mind was alignment between like your values, your actions, your thoughts, and that doesn't necessarily need to be positive to demonstrate integrity. I mean, if your values are you're a confrontational jerk and you're very clear about that and your actions reflect that, you're operating with integrity. It's when there's the disconnect that there's a lack of integrity. So it's interesting because the definition almost felt like it's an elevated, like you're approaching it from a positive perspective, but if you're like morally ambiguous and you're very clear about that and your actions reflect that, would that still constitute integrity?
So your question is a really good one, Ken. And the whole idea, can you read that definition one more time for us, please, Lisa?
The quality of being honest and having strong moral principles, moral uprightness, the state of being whole and undivided, and the condition of being unified, unimpaired, or sound in construction.
Yeah. Having to do with data. Yeah, which I have experience with all.
Yeah, I left that one off.
So the whole thing here is those are not definitions at the same time, okay? It's this or this or this. So there's three separate chains that can be taken on. And what I like that you said, Ken, is most people listen to integrity from the first definition, which is like integrity's good. Having integrity means you're a good person. But I'm with you. If you live in a world where you're happy and satisfied with there are people who live in isolation on a mountaintop in a cabin that they never see anybody, and that's perfect for them.
Mm-hmm.
As a matter of fact, when they have to be around human beings, they're not in integrity any longer. It's upsetting.
Yeah.
So now let's expand a little bit more. If you were going to talk about integrity in your own life, what would that look like? What kinds of sentences are coming to mind when you're considering integrity in your own life?
Listening inside and out, and constantly going through an awakened process of aligning those two things. So, because I think integrity is not, it's like mastery. It's not a thing that you have or you get. It's a process that you choose to engage in that's going to be ever evolving. So, there's some outside interaction, like you consider yourself a patient person and you snap at someone, so now it's like, well, what is that? And now you got to listen in and figure out, is that a value that I have? Is patience important to me? And if so, you've got to figure out how to bring yourself back into alignment, because you've recognized a breach in your integrity, your ability to align your internal compass with, your external interactions. So, and to me, that's like, it's messy. Like, I don't think anyone has integrity all the time. How could you, we're afflicted because sometimes we suck at being human, right?
Mostly. Yeah. And see, that's the whole point, Ken, is that whole idea of being complete and whole, like a balloon. It's either all there or it isn't, right? You put a pin into a balloon, it's not a balloon any longer. And so the whole idea of integrity, which sort of seems like, what do you call that? Equilibrium and balance and all that sort of thing. It is easily disruptible unless you have a path to integrity in your way of being. So in your own life, when you feel that things are disrupted and you're noticing that there are things that you're not really all that happy, that you're thinking or they're coming into your world, do you have a method for going back to that equilibrium and that peace?
Yeah, I think owning it is really big. I mean, just, and that's where that honesty, that's the one that really struck me is from the definitions. I remember when I was in my early 20s, I got a speeding ticket and I was going fast enough that I had to go to court for it, So when I showed up, they like send you to this, I don't know, it's whoever, you got to tell them what happened and then they decide whether or not, like what's going to happen from there. I don't remember the process. This was decades ago. But when I went in and the guy's like, so what happened? And I said, I was speeding. And he said, well, I know it says it on the ticket. What happened? And I said, I was going too fast in my car. and he stopped and he's like, he said, well, no, what's your excuse for speeding? I said, I don't have one. I was an idiot and I was going too fast and I got stopped. And he looked at me and he said, I'm reducing your ticket. He like did whatever he did, and then I left. And it was just, I just owned it, and in my head, I never even thought about it. It was the first time I've ever gotten a speeding ticket, so I didn't know that people made up stories. And so I was just being honest, and it was funny, it was just interesting. And, when do we, if you look at our world right now, when do people get really, really frustrated? When someone doesn't own something they did, they deflect, they assign blame somewhere else, they try to worm their way out of it, whereas if they just say, yeah, I screwed up, and I'm willing to pay the price and move on to regain my integrity, I think people would be a lot more receptive to that.
Yeah, traffic court is a lot like asking a 5-year-old what the cupcake wrappers on the floor are all about. Must have been the dog. I don't know.
Yeah.
I couldn't have because. Lisa?
I was thinking, well, your integrity, I think it's almost challenged every day. Like you said, the people that live on a mountaintop with no outside influence and somebody comes in and your whole being is surprised by that sight, so you don't know what to do with it. You know, where is your integrity, or what's your base, your core belief that you can stand on and nobody can shake you from, which is kind of like the only thing, which is hard to even build for yourself. But I just think every day there's something that comes into, I mean, I think my integrity was questioned. I hurt my neck, and I swear my doctor was testing my integrity of even being honest, you know, and so I think that's kind of how everybody lives every day. And I don't know how you would, but to have a strength in something, I think would be the benefit, whether it's a faith belief or maybe that also pushes you into something new, trying to find something that you can stand on, which is where I'm exactly standing right now.
Well, you know, it occurs to me while you're saying it, having something that's worthwhile is definitely being willing to have it tested. And the stronger the test, the stronger the resolve, or the opportunity to upgrade your, you know, whatever your equilibrium or integrity point is. But I think even before that, making a decision that you do have, that there are certain things that you stand for, and that your way of being will be to, if I get knocked off that, I've got a compass that's pointing me back north again, and I'm going to get back on that road.
I think so. I mean, I like, I don't know if you know the book, The Four Agreements.
Oh yeah,
Don
Miguel Ruiz.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think that's kind of like almost the epitome of integrity, you know, so if you could hold on to those four, which I think is something I would like to focus back on again, but because they are, you know, they're be impeccable with your word, don't take anything personally, don't make assumptions, and always do your best.
Do your best, yeah.
So I think taking the time to, taking the moment, like you said, Bill, to think of like, if you feel like you're being threatened or in some way, even if it's a mild questioning your integrity or honesty, to take a moment and think of those four things maybe, or whatever you choose to look back on to be your anchor kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then speak.
Yeah. We talked about being impeccable with your word a lot, because there's so much value in that from the standpoint of not only when you think someone is listening, but when you don't think someone's listening, you know, and how do you speak, and even how you talk to yourself, you know, and, you know, you hear it in the workplace a lot, the gossip, how many times does someone get caught in a recording, you know, or whatever, saying things that, you know, they probably shouldn't have said.
You've been listening to Lighting the Candle, a world that works, part of the Exvadio Podcast Network. You can hear us at exvadio.com/podcasts, Apple Podcasts app, Google Play, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, and wherever you find podcasts.